President Lee Jae-myung on lifting outdated regulations for businesses. From punishing businesses to autonomous vehicles, President Lee wants those stymieing business growth to be scrapped. The Deputy Prime Minister for Finance and the ruling Democratic Party leadership sit down to discuss the economy ahead of the nation's major holiday. The amount of budget injected to tame prices before the long holiday, and as requested by politicians, government will scrap plans to lower the major shareholder threshold. The interpellation session kicks off at the parliament, the first of its kind for the Lee Jae-myung administration. We explain what to expect. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Kim Do-yeon filling in for Kim Da-mi. We begin with the top office. President Lee Jae-myung today chaired an open debate on lowering regulatory burdens for South Korea's economic growth. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yu-jin starts us off.
Regulatory reform is the key to the growth of South Korea. Presiding over an open debate on Monday with ministers, business leaders, and lawmakers, President Lee Jae-myung called for sweeping changes to what he described as outdated, policymaker-centered rules.
불필요한 규제는 없애거나 축소하고 필요한 규제는 확대 강화하자. 복잡한 이해관계 또 부처 간의 입장의 차이 때문에 정말 거미줄처럼 규제들이 얽혀 있는데 이런 거미줄 규제를 좀 과감하게 확 걷어내자.
He singled out South Korea's punishment-heavy approach to corporate wrongdoing, calling it ineffective. He pointed to the breach of trust law, saying it has dampened foreign investor sentiment toward the country.
결정을 잘못했는지 나중에 너 이렇게 했으면 훨씬 더 잘할 수 있었는데 왜 이렇게 해서 기업에 손해를 끼쳤어? 배임죄로 기소하잖아요. 그것도 유죄가 나서 감옥을 가요. 그 위험해서 어떻게 사고를 합니까? 판단과 결정을 자유롭게 하는 게 기업의 속성인데.
To address this, the finance minister proposed overhauling the system by strengthening financial accountability.
For minor violations, such as failing to file a simple report, we'll shift to administrative fines. If correct orders are followed, the government will accept them. Criminal punishment will only be applied if problems persist.
The discussion also highlighted regulatory hurdles facing emerging industries such as artificial intelligence and mobility. Proposals included creating a platform for data trading to address copyright and pricing issues and expanding test zones for self-driving vehicles. Currently, only 132 autonomous cars are operating in 47 pilot areas across South Korea, which lags far behind China and the U.S., where thousands of vehicles are being tested. Monday's debate marked the first of its kind under the Lee administration. The presidential office will establish a presidential committee for regulatory reform and hold follow-up debates to gather more opinions. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Follow-up negotiations on South Korea's trade deal with the United States are continuing, though key differences remain unresolved. The two sides remain far apart on how to manage and distribute profits from the Korea's promised $350 billion investment fund, while Seoul stresses it will not rush into any deal that undermines its national interest. Our Pyun Ye-young reports.
Trade talks between South Korea and the U.S. are set to continue as Trade Minister Yeo Han-gu leaves for the U.S. on Monday to meet with the United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Industry Minister Kim Jong-un returned home the previous day after follow-up discussions with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on the trade agreement reached in July. Under that deal, the U.S. had agreed to cut reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 15% in exchange for Seoul pledging investment worth $350 billion. But follow-up talks have proven difficult. U.S. officials are demanding that Korea increase the share of direct investment, allow Washington to select where the funds are invested, and concede 90% of the profits to the United States. For Seoul, such terms are seen as unfair. The presidential office has reiterated that no hasty decision will be made at the expense of the nation's interest.
The president has previously described Korea's stance as defensive. We are conducting negotiations with the aim of protecting national interests to the fullest.
The presidential office also explained that the negotiations are not aimed at a single fixed goal, but involve both sides presenting new conditions in search of balance, making the talks highly variable. Japan, a key rival in automobiles, struck a deal with Washington in early September, adding pressure on Seoul. Tokyo agreed to invest $550 billion under terms set by the U.S., including project selection and a 90% profit share. In return, tariffs on Japanese cars fall to 15% from September 16th, putting Korean exporters at a disadvantage. With the talks at a standstill, attention now turns to President Lee Jae-myung's upcoming trip to the UN General Assembly in New York later this month, which could provide another opportunity for another summit with President Trump. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
Korea's ICT exports soared more than 11% on-year in August thanks to increased demand for chips for AI infrastructure. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young explains.
South Korea's ICT exports last month achieved record-breaking August figures, driven by record-high chip sales despite U.S. tariffs. According to data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Sunday, ICT exports in August totaled over $22.8 billion, up 11.1% year-on-year. Semiconductor exports, the largest export engine, surpassed $15 billion, marking a 27% increase. The record-breaking performance was driven by the rising contract prices of memory chips and robust demand for high-performance memory products such as HBM and DDR5, fueled by the expansion of AI servers and data centers.
Currently, the impact of U.S. tariff policies isn't prominently affecting semiconductors, so we need to consider that aspect separately. AI semiconductors come in various types, and Korea's HBM is integrated into those AI systems. Given HBM's exceptionally high unit price, it's significantly driving our current export boost, and we expect this upward trend to continue.
In contrast, display exports saw a decline due to sluggish demand in front-end industries like TVs, monitors, and mobile devices. Mobile phone exports also experienced an overall decrease as the slowdown in component exports outweighed the strong performance of new finished product exports. Exports of computers and peripherals also fell, largely influenced by the sharp increase in SSD exports the year before, creating a high base effect. Among major markets to see an increase were Vietnam, up 18%, and the European Union with a rise of 8.2%, while Taiwan saw a particularly strong surge of over 65%. Japan and China also saw increased exports. Exports to the U.S., however, were down by 9.9%. Meanwhile, ICT imports totaled over $12.5 billion, resulting in a positive ICT trade balance. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's KOSPI soared to a new all-time high and closed above 3,400 points on Monday. Pundits claim that the government's decision to maintain the current tax threshold for major shareholders might have contributed to the rally. For more, our Park Jun-an explains.
The decision by the government to maintain the major shareholder threshold for capital gains tax at 5 billion Korean won, or around $3.6 million, has fueled the KOSPI rally. Adding momentum to its record-breaking streak for a fourth straight session, the KOSPI closed above the 3,400 mark on Monday for the first time in its history. The market had temporarily stalled since July after news that proposed tax reform would slash the capital gains tax threshold for major shareholders to 1/5 of its current level. But stocks started to bounce back after President Lee Jae-myung suggested last Thursday that the measure might be revised.
야당도 요구하고 또 여당도 또 그냥 놔두면 좋겠다는 의견이고 저한테 메시지도 막 많이 오고 그런 걸 봐서는 굳이 뭐 50억을 10억으로 내리자 반드시 그렇게 해야 되겠다 그렇게 생각하지는 않습니다.
After President Lee publicly addressed the possibility of leaving the threshold unchanged, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance Ko Yoon-chul confirmed the government's decision to maintain the current level.
There was considerable deliberation regarding the major shareholder threshold for capital gains tax on stock transfers. Officials weighed the need for fair taxation against the goal of supporting and energizing the capital market. After considering both public opinion and the party's position, the government decided to keep the threshold at 5 billion won.
The professor of economics said the decision to leave the tax threshold unchanged brought stability to the stock market.
From the perspective of stock investors, maintaining the 5 billion won threshold means holdings below this level remain unaffected, helping to stabilize stock prices. By keeping the threshold, the administration has also encouraged investors who previously considered selling to hold on to their positions, which positively impacts the stock market.
Now, attention is focused on stabilizing foreign exchange rates and the upcoming U.S. Federal Reserve interest rate decision, as well as the U.S. Fed's future guidance that could impact global stock markets. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
The government and ruling party have announced a series of measures to help ease the cost of living ahead of the Chuseok holiday. The plan includes boosting the supply of high-demand items to a record level. Our political correspondent, Shin Ha-young, has the details.
Ahead of the Korean version of the Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok, the government and the ruling party are rolling up their sleeves with ways to help ease grocery costs. The plan was announced on Monday at a meeting between the administration and the Democratic Party.
Rising prices during the holiday season shouldn't be taken for granted. We hope the government's plan to supply record amounts of vegetables, meat, and other essentials goes smoothly. The party's price task force will track price drivers from production and work on fundamental solutions on the ground.
As part of the efforts, the government is increasing the supply of key grocery items for Chuseok, including apples, pears, and chestnuts, to a record 172,000 tons.
We will boost the supply of 15 key grocery items and spend a record 50 billion Korean won on discounts to help lower people's grocery bills.
After the meeting, the DP said that the government will also provide an additional 25,000 tons of rice to stabilize prices, while vulnerable groups will be eligible for a 20% discount. To boost domestic consumption, the government will issue 150,000 accommodation coupons for use in special disaster zones that have been heavily hit by natural disasters. Highway tolls will be waived for 4 days starting October 4th, and KTX and SRT train tickets for travelers from the provinces to the capital area during the Chuseok holiday will be discounted by up to 40%. The government will also spend a record 43.2 trillion won, or about $31 billion, to provide greater support for small business owners as well as small and mid-sized companies. Meanwhile, the DP called for thorough preparations to avoid confusion over the government's second round of livelihood recovery consumption coupons, which will begin accepting applications next Monday, with the government pledging to do its best for a smooth rollout. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Applications start today for the government's nationwide payback program that reimburses consumers for part of their credit card spending. In an effort to revive household demand and support small businesses, the 3-month program offers monthly refunds of up to 100,000 won. That's roughly $74 for adults whose card spending has exceeded their monthly average spending in 2024. All residents of age who used a credit card or debit card last year are eligible to apply, including foreign residents. Applications will remain open from September 15th to November 30th, and payouts begin October 15th, with subsequent refunds distributed on the 15th of each following month. Refunds will be issued as digital onnuri gift certificates valid for 5 years and are capped at 300,000 won over 3 months. The National Assembly's questioning of the government got underway this afternoon, and tensions ran high as lawmakers immediately began to spar over judicial reforms. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
The Lee Jae-myung administration's first 4-day interpellation began on Monday, with lawmakers clashing over political affairs. A debate quickly centered on judicial reforms and calls for Chief Justice Choi-da to step down, with the Democratic Party accusing him of political bias.
The entire judiciary must not be taken hostage by the Chief Justice's political beliefs. Is the Chief Justice really that great? Is he above the president? Is he not subject to impeachment by the people?
This accusation stems from a controversial Supreme Court ruling that found President Lee guilty of making false claims during his 2022 presidential campaign. While the case was sent back to a lower court, the DP claims the decision was a deliberate attempt to interfere with the presidential election and potentially disqualify Lee. When asked if he agreed with calls for the Chief Justice to resign, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok responded he was well aware of the issue at hand.
I am well aware of the reasons why the public has been disappointed with the Chief Justice and the judiciary.
But People Power Party leader Chang Dong-hyuk argued the move was just to shield Lee, noting his trials were frozen after his election victory. The PPP also criticized plans for a special tribunal on insurrection, tied to former President Yoon Suk-yeol's failed martial law order in December.
As they push ahead with a special insurrection tribunal, they must be worried that these 5 trials could be resumed. The resignation of Chief Justice Cho is not about principled agreement. It is what the presidential office wants most.
The debate has now become a central issue in the broader discussion about the separation of powers. The Assembly's government Q&A session will continue to address state affairs in the coming days, foreign affairs and security on Tuesday, the economy on Wednesday, and culture as well as education and social issues on Thursday. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Seoul and Beijing's top diplomats will meet in person for the first time this week as Foreign Minister Cho Hyun makes his first visit to China since taking office. According to the Foreign Ministry on Monday, Cho will make a 2-day trip to China on Wednesday, and the two sides will convene the first Korea-China foreign ministers meeting under the Lee Jae-myung administration. Their discussions are expected to include preparations for next month's APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju, a possible visit by President Xi Jinping, and ways to advance the two countries' strategic cooperative partnership. President Lee Jae-myung has appointed attorney Cha Ji-hoon as South Korea's new ambassador to the United Nations. The Foreign Ministry announced Cha's appointment on Monday. An attorney and a former alumnus of President Lee at a judicial institute, Cha previously served as legal counsel to Seongnam City and was part of Lee's defense team in a 2020 election law case that ended in acquittal. Unlike other ambassadorships, the UN post does not require host country approval, so Cha is expected to take up his post in New York soon. At this year's Toronto International Film Festival, South Korean director Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice won the International People's Choice Award, which was newly created this year. Director Chloe Zhao's adaptation of Hamlet won the top prize, the People's Choice Award. According to festival officials, the drama on Shakespeare's life based on Maggie O'Farrell's award-winning novel of the same name earned the festival's highest honor. The Toronto Festival, now in its 50th year, is the largest film festival in North America and wrapped up on Sunday local time. On September 11th, South Korean actor Lee Byung-hun received a Special Achievement Award at the festival. It is now time to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Neat, joining us in the studio. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you.
Now, let's begin with football. Heung-min had already scored his first MLS goal, but his second will carry greater meaning for him. Can you tell us more?
Yes, that's right. His second goal in Major League Soccer came in a win for LAFC for the first time. Son on Sunday opened the scoring for LAFC in a 4-2 win over San Jose Earthquakes. It was a tap-in from close range inside the first minute, but Son showed great movement and anticipation to be in the right place at the right time. In 5 matches for his new club, Son now has 2 goals and 2 assists to his name. His first goal came in a 1-1 draw with FC Dallas at the end of August. LAFC sit 5th in the Western Conference and are in contention for the playoffs. They face Real Salt Lake away next Wednesday, local time.
Now let's move on to baseball. Kim Ha-sung seems to be benefiting from the change of scenery.
Yeah, you're quite right. He's moved to the Atlanta Braves in mid-season from the Rays. And on Sunday, he recorded his first 3-hit game of the season. Kim batted 3 for 4 with a walk, 1 RBI and 1 run scored to help the Braves beat the Houston Astros 8-3. It was Kim's first 3-hit effort since last July when he was on the books of the Padres. He hit an infield single in the bottom of the 2nd inning and singled to right field in the 3rd. Then, with the Braves up 4-2 in the 5th, he delivered an RBI single up the middle. For the season, Kim is hitting .238 with 3 home runs, 11 RBIs and 6 steals in 35 games. The Braves are next in action against the Washington Nationals on Monday, local time.
Now let's move on to athletics. Woo Sang-hyuk has a final to look forward to.
He does, yes. High jumper Woo Sang-hyuk has reached the World Athletics Championships final. In Tokyo on Sunday, in a qualifier, Woo Sang-hyuk finished 3rd at 2.25 metres. The final on Tuesday will be a chance for Woo to become the first South Korean to win a gold medal at the World Championships. He won silver in 2022. He won the World Indoor title in March and will attempt to become only the 2nd male high jumper to win both the indoor and outdoor titles in the same year.
And finally, and not really surprising, some World Championship at archery.
Yes, some medals, a gold medal for Kang Chae-yeon being the most recent. On Friday at the World Archery Championships held in Gwangju in South Korea, Kang won the women's recurve gold. She beat Zhu Xingyi of China 7-3 to win what was her very first individual world title. She actually beat An San in the semis, who went on to win bronze. Her previous best was silver in 2019, but won team Olympic gold in 2021. The last 5 World Championships have now produced 5 different women's recurve individual champions. Korea finished this year's Worlds with 2 gold medals, 1 silver medal and 3 bronze medals in recurve and 1 bronze in compound.
All right, thank you for that wrap up, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
This late summer heat is continuing. At this time of year, the highest daytime temperature in Seoul is usually around 25 degrees Celsius. However, it rose to 30 degrees Celsius, far above the average level. There were still many areas where the temperature rose to 33 degrees, mainly in the south where a heat wave advisories was issued. In addition, showers are forecast across the country tomorrow. Rain will begin in the central and western parts late at night and will spread far across the country on Wednesday. Up to 40 millimeters of heavy rain is expected around the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Daegu will start off at 23 degrees.
Daily highs will up to 29 degrees in Chuncheon, 31 degrees in Gwangju and Busan. As the rain clouds approach all over the country, the late heat will gradually fade after the rain stops. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. I'm Kim Do-yeon in Seoul. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and have a great day or night.